Good morning, Service Alliance community. How y'all doing today?
What's up,
Can you still
Zach?
hear me?
Yeah, you
What's up?
sound like you're in the bathroom, though. It's good. Is that like an
Well-
executive bathroom at the hotel?
It kind of. Big old boardroom.
That's it. So everybody got
Live
there?
from PSA.
Everybody got there?
Yes, sir.
That's awesome. I'm going to miss hanging out down there. That would have been a lot of fun.
Yeah, we're going to miss you, buddy. We've seen a lot of our community and just had some good conversations last night and this morning over breakfast. So
It's when the best ideas come around. It's not in a classroom sometimes,
always.
Yep.
Yeah, it's half of our normal audience is in classes right now. So,
There you go. So it's just you and me and my wife. She's trying to pick a fight with me. I could tell.
No, I was telling you my standard practices for my job.
Your standard
Why don't you
practice.
change the narrative to?
See how she's being combative right now? See, we've taken today off from work and we're going to go to the state fair. And yeah, but we like it a little tense in the car. Never mind. Anyway.
She's going to feed you the hogs before she leaves, ain't she?
Yeah.
No.
Why don't you come on to the podcast, Val?
Nope.
Oh, interesting.
Good morning, Gary. Glad to have you along with us. Sorry for the delay. DK was a little slow with devotion this morning before breakfast, and I'm not used to being on East Coast time. I'm all sorts of thrown off. Took a little longer to set up. I had to set up Mike's camera in his classroom so he could record, and then, that's actually
my wife
always
said
the last one.
My wife said that today we can call this Manic Monday. I think you're describing that pretty well, right? See that? She is.
I like it.
He occasionally comes up with good ideas.
I like it. So today we're going to be talking standards for your business. I love one of the things that you said as we were just kind of talking through what we're going to talk about today. Don't set the standards to what your competition is. You need to set the standards for your company. You need to pay attention to your lane and really set the standards that way. So I'm looking forward to hearing what you have and some of the standards that I've found over the years and some of the standards as a roofer that we're beginning to implement, not paying attention to the competition. So I'm going to pray us up and then we'll get into this thing.
We'll have a quick Manic Monday and get you back to classes and all that over at PSA. So here we go. Lord God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for all of those at PSA this week. And we just pray for wisdom and knowledge, that your spirit guide them through all the information that they hear. But especially, God, we just thank you for fellowship and opportunity to come shoulder to shoulder to give words of encouragement, maybe even accountability to one another. So prepare our eyes, our minds, and our ears this week at PSA to hear what you have for us in order for us to be companies that serve our community well. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. So standards.
So standard practices. First, I think we have to make sure that we can sustain them, right? I remember when we were much smaller, we had like 3 techs, and everyone had their own different standard, and we'd sometimes fight and argue about it. And so there was no consistency there. That's one of my earliest memories of that, just kind of like the wild, wild west. And
everyone kind of rowing their own dang direction, huh?
Yeah. And Jay had his own too, and there were moments where early on, I mean, he was a fairly new owner to employees, kind of wanting to adopt anything that sounded good as long as we could do that on our part. But every once in a while, I found I'd follow behind someone else 6 months or a year later, and they were having an expectation, and I was like, oh, we don't do that. And so now we're contradicting each other, and maybe that was a little moment that I completely missed that let the customer down. So we got to identify those core sort of standards that represent and make up who we are as our own businesses, right? Like at Gordon's,
for
what
sure.
were you known for at Gordon's? Can you remember that far back, or is that so far history now, Zach? But what was Gordon's known for their practices?
I mean, caring for customers, really. That Floyd started with caring for customers, but as far as standards and practices in place, it was definitely the Wild West. Everyone kind of did their own thing. As long as they were taking care of the customer, that was that, right?
Yeah.
Like that was the standard. Take care of the customer. Which, I mean, it's a good starting point, but you really have to kind of
Define it.
expand out from that.
Yeah.
And
You
what
gotta
does it
define
actually
it,
mean
right?
to take care
Yeah.
of the customer?
Yeah, like where you're at now with the roofing company, right? You're one of their best salespeople. What's the standards that you kind of know without knowing it, just from where you're at now? What's the expectations as you represent them as an ambassador?
Yeah, I mean, so again, we're talking taking care of customers, right? They're very big on, one of the core values is details matter, right? And now the problem with the core values that are at that company is not everyone is paying attention to the core values, right? And so if you set these standards, then how do you measure them? What are the metrics to which you're measuring against? And the reason I say that is then are you holding people accountable to staying with these standards, right?
Sure.
So details matter in more than half your sales force and more than half your technicians. And again, I can go back to Gordon's because I didn't have a standard for which I can measure it. I said, this is the standard, but
Sure.
there was no measuring stick for it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so if you do that, but you don't have any way to enforce it, then you might as well not have standards, right? Because still everyone's just rowing in whatever direction they want to row because there's no accountability to it. So we're going to put standards in place. Let's have a measuring stick so that we can hold people accountable. It's all three. It's not just one thing.
Yeah.
But the details matter. Being honest, being, selling things appropriately, right? Like we're not here to rip people off. And the same thing applies in the appliance world. We're not here to rip people off. So do we have pricing guides in place that make it easy to know how we're going to actually sell our jobs, right?
That's right. Yeah, I like that. That you have to be able to measure the success or the inadequacies of your standards. So that's a great point to make. Right at the foundational block, right?
100%.
Yeah. I'm trying to think for us things that help us measure if we're meeting standards are what is same day next day, since we're COD, same day next day service. In the beginning of the summer, we were watching the cancellation rate rise, and then someone would call out sick or there's a vacation, and then we were really kind of behind. So that kind of showed us that if we want to continue to be a same day next day company, we're going to have to hire more technicians, which brings a whole nother set of problems, because then once the slower season comes, what are we going to do? So you have to have a plan in place for it. But same day, next day, cancellation rate is important. And then all of a sudden, when your time is being stretched very thin and you're booking out 2 and 3 days, if you see a technician order a truck stock part and now create a second visit when we could have taken care of another customer. So, first call completes and figuring out, those things that were ordered could we have prevented that. We weren't able to achieve any kind of triage level yet, and we're working on that, because I think that's going to be something to help us keep to that standard of same day, next day.
Yeah, one of the things that I've heard float around, and it's not inherently bad, but it is missing the mark by a little bit, is well, if you just answer your phone, you're already better than your competition. And so if we're setting our bar that low,
Mm.
you know what I mean? Like,
Wow.
are
Wow,
we
Zach.
really
It's
any?
Monday. It's Monday. Take it easy.
I know. I'm fired up. Let's go. No, but really, if we're setting our bar that low and we're setting it against, well, our competition doesn't answer the phone. So if we answer our phone, then we're doing great. And on the surface, that is true to an extent, but what is the value the customer is getting? Are you building lifelong relationships with your customers? Are you building these lifelong customers? Or is it just a transactional thing like, hey, we answered the phone and we showed up, so we
Yeah.
can get the job. Woo.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think when we set our standards, we need to set these realistic goals and standards for our company that are achievable, maybe a little bit of a stretch, but are an achievable thing. But they force us to be better than ourselves, right?
Sure.
Not just our competition, but force us to be better than ourselves. And so I always think we should be, shooting to elevate our company along the
Sure.
spectrum. What are some ways that you guys do that? I know you shoot for same day, next day, and I'm sure some of that is in response to the other servicers in your area. But like, what are some of the things that you're like, all right, we want to head this direction, we want to head upward?
Yeah. Well, I think, reputation management's important as well. So it's pretty, you have to be careful, right? It's not about being right. It's about meeting people where they're at. Thought my wife had an issue with that statement.
No, I was choking.
Oh, she was just choking in toast. My bad. I was ready for a fight. I was ready. No, wait, it's not about being right. Damn it. So anyway, yeah, reputation management is important. But there was something when you were talking about setting a goal too low or standards too low.
Yeah.
It kind of triggered me. I'm fairly new, like less than 5 years into this mindset of goal setting and breaking it down into smaller segments and not getting so that I don't get distracted, so I don't give up, so I don't put it on the shelf and not sustain. Oh boy.
He's not wrong.
Oh.
In order to be a successful business owner, you got to first learn to be a great employee. People often miss this. And this is coming from 3 employees. So
That's true. That's absolutely true. But no, Zach, what I'm realizing is that for every goal that I've been setting over the last 2 years, it is not a finish line. It's a goal that leads to the next goal, And that's a different mindset for me. I mean, I used to when I first started kind of plotting out a course and saying, I'm going to do these 6 things that's going to achieve this. When I got there, I was kind of like, cool, but lost. But now it's a continuous road. And I remember this quadrant thing from our church. Our church denomination came in to do it was called Veritas, to do sort of an analysis of your church. And if I remember it, now it's all off the top of my head. You had 4 quadrants, and the bottom corner was a dead church, and the top corner was healthy missional. And then you had in decline and stable. So healthy, missional, stable, in decline, and of course, to the grave, a dying church or a dead church. And we would listen and talk about, and what are we known for? What is good? What are the good things that our church does? What are some things that are maybe traditional that have lost its impact? Are we spread too thin, doing too many things? What are our core values? And then when we were done, or before we were done, we had to go up there, like 250 of us, and draw a little X on this big whiteboard to say, where do you think our church stands? And there was a couple in healthy missional, a whole bunch in stable, and a whole bunch in decline. And it's interesting to see that as a group, we all had a different degree or understanding of where we thought our church was heading. So I don't think a business, I think a business is just like that. I don't think it's static and stays in one place. Just because you've hired enough guys and everything's running smooth today, things are going to change every day, every year. And so we have to always be moving, and we always want to be moving towards healthy instead of relying on the fact that we're stable or giving up or putting your head in the sand and ignoring factors that are starting to chip away and cause you to go to declining to the eventual death, So best type of way I would say to do that is with your whole company. Have everyone. I'm toying with the idea of revisiting that whole training and draw 4 quadrants and say, where are we? And where do you think we're heading? And it causes even us as employees, I would hope, to think about, why do we do all these things? Why do we do this? And why are we asking customers' opinion to that? Why are you asking my opinion? Just give me my calls and let me go home. That could be one mindset or mentality, and others want to know why we do what we do. But to get that in a big setting could be a very good exercise for Action Appliance, I think.
One of the things I want to bring up as you were talking about that, it sparked something in my mind, and it's a conversation that I've had with our ops manager, and it's this mindset of what got you here,
yes,
is not going to get you there, right? So what's always worked, that thing that brought you to this point, more than likely, is not going to be the thing that gets you to that next level, right? And so in that, I see and I experienced in my own company that what got us there, right? What got Gordon's there did not sustain, did not take us to that next level. And so if you don't begin to look at, okay, cool, we've hit this goal, how are we taking that next segment and the next segment? What is our trajectory? Then you do become a business in decline, because you think, well, we've always done it this way, and then all of a sudden you're sliding backwards faster than you realize, right?
Yep.
And I think it's more tiring, because then you begin to try and dig yourself out of that, right?
Yeah. You have a negative mindset on it. Now you're in panic or defensive mode instead of being outwardly. It's Monday morning. More intentional, right?
Yeah.
I had in 2018, our peer group, Dean Landers was part of our peer group, and they all the owners came and converged onto Action Appliance to do sort of a peer group visit. And I remember being the office manager, because I'd let the office manager go. I was the service manager and the general manager, and oversaw the parts department. So I was wearing all the hats, and we had the best, most profitable year ever, because we didn't have these salaries. It was just me, and I remember Dean asking me, so how do you think you guys are doing? I'm like, it's great. We're having a great, best year ever. And he goes, are you excelling in any one area, or multiple areas? And I had to honestly, after thinking about it, say, no, I think we're doing really good. But we knew what our standard wanted. I knew what we wanted it to be, but I wasn't able to achieve that wearing all those hats. So I'm bringing that up to tell you that standard practices and where you want your company to head, be careful of the pitfalls. So Dean, the wise Moses that he is, he's like, so what's your plan? I go, well, I have a service manager that I'm going to pull off the road. Oh, he's on the road. So is he really a service manager? I'm like, no. All right. So I'm going to make a service manager very soon when I pull him off the road. And I'm going to work with him to create a great job description. Yes, right. Paul was there. I remember saying, let me create a job description with this employee, so that I can make sure that we're on the same page, that we can collaborate. And Dean was like, okay. However, what happens if he or she wants this and you don't really want that? So you guys come to a compromise on a part of a role or a task or responsibility, and it's not yours and it's not theirs, but it's something in between. And let's say down the road, it's not working out, and that's a factor. Whose fault is it? And like right away, I'm like, no, it's my fault. He goes, you're in charge of defining the role because you know you want the company to head to. So beware on customizing your role to fit someone because you really want to have the right person in the right seat, because it's not about just making the best of today with what we have. It's about always focusing on where we want to head to and having the best opportunity to set yourself up for success. So I remember just recently, as I'm defining new leadership roles in the company, how vital it is that you are the author and the creator because you know where you want to head it. And so you have to make that, and then you have to go find the right person for that job. Do not give in there because you're going to just be a lesser version of yourself because you're going to have to work with what you've accepted as. And it's not, and by the way, because maybe my service manager watches, it's just making him or her be somebody that they're not. That's not good for them either. That's terrible for them because if their strength isn't that and you're asking them to be strong in that, well, again, it's back to me. It's back to my fault again because I'm trying to get what I can out of them, and they're not going to feel fulfilled and satisfied either. So right person, right seat is going to help you develop great standards, and everyone's going to be a champion for those standards.
Well, and that is a great standard. I think we talked about that when we were talking about hiring people on, right? Like how many of us slammed a technician into a role just because we needed a body and they weren't necessarily the right person for that seat. Whether it was they would have been better off as a service manager or a CSR not working for the company. Like there's all these different routes, but how many of us would just like, oh my God, we need a body, so I'm just going to hire this technician. He knows how to turn a wrench and he's breathing or she's breathing, and so many of us have fallen into that trap instead of following. And that's why when we set these standards, it is so important to really truly know, like it starts with who are we as a company, right? So those core values that I talked about at the beginning, those are so important. Okay, now what do we do with our core values? Right. We're going to start goal setting. Okay, now what do we do with our goals? Well, we're going to start implementing some procedures and some processes, and we're going to start, putting some accountability steps in place. Like we're going to start holding people accountable. So all these things begin to build upon each other. And that's why when we started this series a couple of weeks ago, we started at the beginning and we've been slowly working our way through all these things that build each other. It
is a simple process for sure. It's the fact that
it's not easy.
Well, no, because there's going to always be these gray areas or complicated factors. And again, if you choose to focus on them or give them more weight than they maybe deserve, it becomes more difficult. And for me, sometimes with projects that I'm worried about failing on, if I feel I start to get indecisive because I don't want to make the final call or the final decisions. Like an example would be your best technician. That person's been with you for 10 years and they've helped you make the business what it is. And you want now a manager. Well, they earned it. They earned that spot. I want them here, and I want to reward them. But if they don't have the makeup for that role that you're creating, then you're really, again, doing an injustice to everyone. You're taking potentially someone out of a role that they love doing and forcing them because they're loyal to you as much as you're trying to show them how appreciative you are of them, and what a sad state of affairs. And so again, stick to that right person, right seat thing. And back to Tommy Mello, maybe it wasn't Tommy Mello. Now I'm starting to read other books and I can't remember the authors, but you will always find a place for your excellent employees. If they're not happy with, or they're moving or growing out of what they're doing, you better find some way in the company to find something for them. Your business needs to be built around good people. And you can create customized roles for them for sure.
That technician might not be a good manager, but they might be a good lead tech. They might be the guy that everyone
Trainer,
calls
yeah.
to ask questions to. They
Yep.
might be able to train that person, right?
Yep.
But they don't have the managerial skills, right? So slamming them into a service manager role is a terrible idea if they don't have the other makeup. And so that goes into our standards as well, right? We really have to understand what we're trying to do with these specific roles, with the way that our company is flowing, in order to fully define what does it look like to be a service manager? What does it look like to be a CSR? What does it look like to be the office manager, right? Like all those things have to be clearly defined. Otherwise, we're just putting people in the role because we think, oh, well, they earned it. They earned something, but it might not be that. It might not be that.
That's right. That's right. And so let's work those steps backward. Why are we talking about that? We're talking about that because we have standards when we're a one-man show, our standards. And I forget who I was telling this to. I heard this somewhere else, right? You can't clone yourself. So, and you're not going to be able to duplicate yourself. So you're going to have to create standards that the people that you ask to come on board can live up to. And they're not going to be as good as you for right off the bat. But if the standards are achievable and you have the right people in the right place, you can take this journey down the road if that's where you want it to go, right? So it's the GWC, right?
Get it, want capacity to do it.
To test the person in the role. Do they get it? Do they get the big picture? Do they get the little picture? Do they want it? Are we forcing them into the seat? Are they not gifted in that way, but they're desperate, or they want to make us happy? And do they have the capacity? If you see, their eyes glaze over, it's okay. They're still amazing people. They just don't have the capacity for that role.
Yeah, I think it actually was us. And earlier in this series, we were talking about when you're bringing people on.
Yep.
You can't clone yourself, right?
Right.
But 80% of what you are doing with someone else doing it is still 100% of you not having to do it. And
that's right.
Those standards are still high. We still have this level of we need to be taking care of the customers same day, next day, if that's what your thing is. Clean and professional and prompt and answering the phone. Whatever your standards are, as long as they're in those boundaries of doing that, it's still 100% of you not doing it. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not going to challenge it. That doesn't mean that we're not going to push people a little bit further along in the journey. But again, that's where the standards come in. That's where we begin to add capacity to our company.
Right. And what's funny is, Zach, all this stuff, possible that it'll be obsolete in the next 5-10 years, right? They can start to, this could be bad, but if they can start to clone people, then we wouldn't have to worry, right? You can have like 12 Ginnies working at, what would it be like, Ginny, to have 12 of you in one company? I don't know. This is like a science fiction movie that I would want to see, right, Zach? So now all of a sudden you clone yourself 20 times, and there's a company called the Zags.
They already made that movie. It's called Multiplicity, and that's how it would end up for me. I like pizza. That's how my clone. That's how my clone would end up. He'd be the.
Yeah. So which
you make a copy of a copy of a copy.
So last question would be probably a simple one, but it's Monday and I'm still cloudy, and there's a lot of great food at this fair, and that's what I'm really thinking about right now. So which comes first, standards or the people or the roles that you're creating? Which would you do first, Zach? If you're moving anything out of yourself into where you need to trust the team and you want to give them standards, which comes first? Does it matter?
It's got to be a standards. I,
Because you may
you
not
can
know
have
what.
people and you can be rowing in a direction. Now that doesn't mean that your people can't help you.
Right.
And again, this is why I don't like the clone thing, right? Like, and why I kind of cringed when you said it. Like, I don't need 20 of me running around. I don't like listening to me, right? I don't
Yeah.
need 20 more of me
You
telling me what to do.
you need to complement the Zacks with the anti-Zacks. Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Well,
so
just
I
because
really think we have to start with the standards.
well, you'll have to have a range, I think, to start with. Because I have met some people that are very have strong opinions, and that's maybe why they haven't grown or scaled. It's like if they can't do what I do, then I don't want them, or I would hate to see any customer experience anything less than what I'm going to give. And so there's like a trust factor there. But like you're probably gonna have to create a standard that has a high and a low,
Yeah.
because you're gonna then have to go find people and plug them in. And if that standard is too high, I would hate for anyone to think, well, I failed. You're going to have to adjust those standards down the road, depending on the crew.
Well, I think having a range is good, but let's not set standards to the lowest performers either.
No, for sure.
Because I can think back to Gordon's, and if I would have set standards to some of the people that I had working for me, it would have ended a heck of a lot sooner than it did, and I would have been a heck of a lot more jaded than I was, right? And so that's why I think the standards has to be first. But I agree. I think there has to be a kind of high and low range as we set these standards. Like here's what our target is, and like here's the acceptable range within that. And then the goal is with those employees, you're moving them through that range, you're moving them to the upper end, and then you can change the standard for the next level or the next tier, or whatever they're at, right?
That's right. Yeah.
The goal is always growth. And so I think the biggest thing to remember that as leaders, as managers, if we are failing to help people be the best version of themselves, then we are failing. Right. Like that's a harsh statement, but if you are leading people and you are failing to push them to be the best version of themselves, if you're not giving them all the tools within your capacity to be the best version of themselves, then you truly are failing. Yeah. Like I think that is the only actual failures, when you fail to equip people to be the best version of themselves.
Sure. No, I love that. And that can continue forever. Something that I'm thinking about now is we've got some smart people, and they've talked about wanting to go to college and to take some business, learn the business well. That would be great for us to invest into them, right? But I wouldn't have thought that 12 years ago. Like that wouldn't have even been on the radar to say that we could. And I've always felt that way. Like my job as a leader is to help you become the best version of yourself. And so imagine if it became something like that, where there's a standard in the company. If you achieve this level, we'll pay for your college, and then you can pay that back in investment in the business, right?
I mean, that's straight out of Tommy Miller playbook. You're investing in people, and you're creating not a transactional employee and employer relationship. Right. You're really truly building a lifelong relationship with that employee. And I think one of the other things that gets glossed over as we set these standards, as we grow these people, some people may grow beyond you, right? And that's not necessarily a poor reflection on you, though it could be, right? If you're not setting some targets that are out there, people could grow beyond you, and then
Sure.
You know, that's kind of on you for not setting targets. Are you one of those companies that's going backwards?
Sure.
But it's okay if people outgrow you, right? Like I think some of us make these decisions, and it's because we're so scared to lose these people. Oh, I poured so much into them, and I've done, and while yes, it is a sad thing, you got to ask yourself the question: Did I provide everything that I could for them
Sure.
to grow
Yep.
to the point that they could? And if we didn't, then wish them the best, and provide what resources you can on their way out the door.
If your company goal is to make as much profit money as possible, you're going to live a difficult, complicated, paranoid, painful life, because for every insurance claim, for every employee that leaves, you're going to take it personally. But if you start with investing in people, like you said, making them the best version of themselves, givers gain, right? The mystery of givers
All
gain.
day.
Just
All day.
if you have something that you can do to make someone better, just do it. And that culture, that environment, I've sensed it all for the last, I don't know, I mean, ever since COVID and Facebook and Service Alliance and UASA and networking. Just share what you know and listen well, and you'll get your stuff back. But who's keeping score? It's great how many times I've had a conversation with someone about something random, and then there was my next idea, or there was the solution to my problem. I wasn't looking for it. I'm just in that giver's gain approach. So love it. And yeah, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid that someone's going to leave. They don't owe you anything. If you hired them and you paid them, if you agreed to pay for their college and they learned things and it applied them to your business, it's a relationship that just kind of is freewheeling like that. So it's beautiful.
100%.
Yep.
Well, hey guys, if you're in the Norfolk, Virginia area, we're out here at PSA. We'll be out here all week. We'll be live streaming. Might change locations. We'll see. This boardroom's kind of, boring.
I actually think it's a bathroom, and you brought 2 chairs in there because it's very echoey. So, well,
I mean, high ceilings and whatnot. But yeah, so if you're in Norfolk, come hang out. ServiceAllianceGroup.com. EJ, being lazy, hasn't changed the slide for me, but
EK
we'll
and
have
now EJ. Ouch! You guys need a bro hug before PSA is over.
we bro hugged this morning. We're all good.
We did.
The point of that was we do have our next mastermind coming up in October, with travel and many of you actually traveling to this. We didn't have the one on September 21st, but Mike has recorded it, and it's up. It'll be up on ServiceAllianceGroup.com for all access members. But if you're not join up, and we'll be doing it again in October. But yeah, stay tuned. We'll be posting some stuff from here at PSA, and I think Mike is recording right now. He has my other camera with him. I think our classes, at least ours as Service Alliance Group, we're gonna stick up in the archives on ServiceAllianceGroup.com. So be some good stuff from this week. So. Are there ghosts in the room? Well, I mean, there's a lot of empty chairs. There could be. There really could be.
All right. Have a great week, guys.
All right, guys. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.